Welcome to another live episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, episode 392. I'm your host, Michael. Joining me this week is Daniel from Four Boxing News and the Inscriber. If you're wondering where Gail is, usually she joins us. Scheduling conflicts has resulted in her not being with us the past couple of weeks. Hopefully, we was hoping to have her on here tonight, but she's under the weather. So, for Daniel, speaking on behalf of Daniel here, is hoping that you get well. Um, Gail, as a note, she is not COVID related, non-COVID related, but she is feeling under the weather. And again, I hope she gets well and gets well soon. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report Live, YouTube show, podcast, blog, site discussing all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get discussed. Um, if you want to find out any and all information, please go to the site, p4pboxingreport.com. If you wish to email us, you can do so, p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com, with any questions, suggestions, thoughts, etc., etc., etc. On the site, you will find links to where to find Pound for Pound Box Report all over the social media space. Uh, Links to the YouTube channel, links to the Facebook, Twitter, um, IG page. We still got a Tumblr, even though it's not really out. It's not really active. Um, Also, if you wish to donate, $1, $2, $5, etc., got a Cash Me PayPal donation link on the site. Um, if you're checking this out on YouTube, please make sure to hit that like button. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button. It'll help the overall algorithms get us closer to being monetized. If you're checking us out on RSS distributed feed platforms like on Apple Podcast, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Leave a review, 5-star review will get read. Also, links to where to find us on places like Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, um, etc. We're just all over on the podcast realm, with the exception of Amazon. And also, last but certainly not least, check out my link to Beachbody on Demand if you're looking to get your body right. Um, this winter, if you want to get your body right for the spring and summer, when the weather starts to warm up, please check out Beachbody on Demand's programs for all suitable fitness interests. If you're looking to really challenge yourself, functional training style, 6 weeks of the work, Insanity Asylum, P90X series, they still rock, they still go hard. If you're looking for more body weight training kind of programs, Beachbody on Demand has it. If you're looking for weightlifting specific, please check out Lift 4, right? If you're looking for a boxing specific program, check out 10 Rounds, and that is a 6-week program consisting of five workouts per week. 3 of those workouts dedicated to boxing based cardio, 2 days dedicated to resistance weight work. I've gone through it a few times. I really like it. I think you'll like it too. At the very least, please check out Beachbody on Demand. Take advantage, of the 2-week trial and 2-week free trial, and that is for 2 weeks. For 14 days, you get free access to any and all programs on Beachbody on Demand. So please, at the very least, give that a look. Let's shout out to Emma. Shout out to Emma and Nigo for checking us out. Right, checking us out live. Right. For those who are not paying attention to the State of the Union, welcome. Um, if you're looking for some Tuesday boxing, some boxing talk on a Tuesday, welcome. I see Daniel went ghost on us. Hope to have him back. Here he is right now. Let's recap what took place and focus on the ladies first and foremost. Daniel, we talked about it a lot, how they really ruled the roost in boxing in 2022. Um, Women's devoted card that took place last week at Hulu Theater in Madison Square Garden, right? The headliner was um, two unification bouts, right? One at 126 and one at 130. Let's start on the unification bout at featherweight first. Amanda Serrano fighting Erika Cruz. Serrano was the unified champion. Erika Cruz was the WBA champion. Cruz, gave Serrano basically the fight. gave her a rough, tough battle, right? Uh, she was in it. A lot of people thought that Serrano would basically just blow her out and make easy work of it. That was not the case, far from it. As it seemed to me, Daniel, that once Cruz discovered that she can take Serrano's shots, that it was on from there. And like from second round, you could see the fire in her eyes. She fought with hellfire and brimstone throughout. She was a Bengal tiger. She was a pit bull. She kept coming. She kept coming. Stayed in Serrano's face all night long. And Serrano, she couldn't get way over. Even funny moment, even during the corner, as Cruz suffered a major cut forehead hairline area. Um, Her corner was trying to say one thing, and Cruz was like, "F it, this is my fight. I'm going out my way, right?" And I hope to have Daniel back. And before we talk about Serrano here, and hope to have Daniel back, he's having some technical issues. I have to give Erika Cruz her flowers here. Uh, she exceeded expectations. She showed why she was a champion. She showed why she was a worthy fighter, and she was just dogged and determined in her pursuit. And Serrano got the win. It sets up a rematch with Katie Taylor. It was announced after the fight. Eddie Hearn, Taylor's promoter, announced that want to see the rematch between Taylor and Serrano May 20th in Taylor's home country of Ireland. Um, Taylor was in attendance. She said this is the fight that she wants the big fights, and this is it. This is it. We're finally going to see that fight, and yeah, it's on. Their first battle, um, to many boxing observers and pundits, was the fight of the year for 2022. I felt that Katie Taylor won. Daniel, who we hope to have back on here shortly, he felt that Serrano won. I just felt, and in that fight, the fight was really determined in my eyes by the middle rounds, right? Uh, Pretty much even early on, but in the middle rounds 5 and 6 in particular, Serrano had Taylor in all kinds of trouble. If women's bouts were 3 minutes instead of 2 minutes, Serrano probably would have taken her out in either rounds, if not in round 5, but in round 6. But she kind of let off the gas. Taylor found her bearings, and she was able to connect with enough punches to eke out a split decision. They're going to run it back now. Uh, my problem is with Serrano is I didn't like if Serrano fights Taylor in the rematch the same way she fought Cruz in this last fight. I think that Taylor will find a way to win it again. I didn't like, though the fight was exciting, though it was a candidate for fight of the year. I didn't like Serrano's strategy. I thought she was too flat-footed. She didn't use side-to-side foot movement enough. She settled into a back and forth phone booth warfare. Uh, it kept Cruz in the fight, and because of that, Cruz was just basically on it, like a pit bull smelling blood. Even though, ironically, Cruz was bleeding profusely from early rounds on. So yeah, they're going to fight Serrano Taylor rematches in May. I'm looking forward to it. The hope is that the rematch is just as good as their first fight, which took place in April 2022 at the Big Garden in New York City. They got paid what, over $1 million for this fight. My expectation they're going to get paid a lot more for this rematch, and I speak for a lot of boxing fans. Cannot wait to see it. Cannot wait to see it. On the undercard here, you had another fight for undisputed status. This one at 130 pounds, as Alycia Baumgardner, who's a unified champion at 130 pounds, fought Elhem Mekhaled. My apologies if I pronounce her name wrong. And in the early rounds of this fight, it looked like right. It looked like Baumgardner was going to end this one early. Had her hurt badly in the second round, put her down twice, And you was thinking with Baumgardner's power that it was done. Just going to be a wrap. She's going to end it either that round or the preceding rounds. But just like Cruz showed the heart of a lion in the fight against Serrano, Mekhaled showed the heart of a lion against Baumgardner as she fought back hard as well, right? And the thing that worries me when I see Baumgardner fight is that she's a spot fighter. She fights in spurts. Uh, Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Larry Liston. Talking about, we're going to talk about. Going to put his comments up here in the public YouTube chat. We're going to talk about that Navarrete Wilson fight in a bit. That was another barn burner, but back to Baumgardner and Mekhaled. Um, Mekhaled, she showed heart, she showed determination, and she showed a heck of a chin as well. My problem was back to Baumgardner is that I have concerns about her stamina. She fights in spots. Uh, she's an explosive puncher, but she lets these hard shots go, but she always has to reset to catch her breath. You saw it repeatedly after that big second round. She would land these shots. She would get off these explosive combinations, and then she would let off the gas. That kept Mekhaled in the fight. And when you look at Baumgardner, she suffers from the same problems that I would say a fighter like Anthony Joshua does. Uh, in the fact that she has this very very muscular build, right? It takes a lot of energy to exert those kind of punches. And as a result, uh, sometimes fatigue comes into play, and she doesn't always fight 3 minutes of a round. She got the win here. I thought the fight was closer than the scorecards indicated, just like I thought the fight for um, Serrano Cruz, the scorecards for that fight was closer than a lot of the fight was closer than the scorecards showed in that fight. In terms of what's next for Baumgardner, and see if we can get back Daniel here back. Give me a quick second. Let me reach out to him. What's next for Baumgardner? She talked about wanting the winner of Taylor Serrano rematch, but an interested observer was in the crowd, and that was one Michaela Mayer, right, who she beats last October in a unification bout. The two ladies, Baumgardner and Mayer, as boxing fans know, a lot of bad blood. They don't like each other one bit. For years, they've been talking trash towards each other. Um, Baumgardner addressed Mayer after the fight, basically saying that she would knock her out in a rematch. The interesting thing is that when they fought back in October, Baumgardner was adamant that she's not going to give Mayer another opportunity. Over the past few months, fans, um, she's kind of had a role reversal of that. She's had a change of heart. To me, uh, part of the reason is that yeah, she's with Matchroom. Yeah, she's now undisputed champion. But in many ways, from a financial perspective, a rematch with Michaela Mayer is the most profitable fight financially from Baumgardner, even more so than a fight with either Taylor or Serrano, right? They fought in England, put the rematch here in the United States, either later on this year, early 2024. It spells big money. Make that the main event. Make that a main event. It spells big money for Mayer. I get the sense that despite Baumgartner's stance immediately after their first fight over in London, that as time goes along, you're going to see things heat up for a rematch between her and Mayer. The money's there. Folks want the fight, and I think that's going to happen sooner than later. I would also like to see Baumgardner fight Choi, who's the WBA champion in recess. But you just don't know what Hyun Min Choi, whether she wants to fight, whether she wants to fight Baumgardner. She's been getting off light, fighting light competition, right? And her team has been playing it safe with her. Mayer has attempted to get a match with Choi. Didn't happen. Baumgardner attempted to get a match with Choi. last year. It didn't happen. That's part of the reason we saw Mayer and Baumgardner in October. The hope is now that Mayer, at least my hope, is that Mayer and Baumgardner will ultimately fight again at the end of this year. Let's move on from that card. Let's no third card, third fight on that card, right? Um, Franchon Cruz is the undisputed super middleweight champion of the world. Um, she hasn't she hasn't fought since she became undisputed almost a year ago, April 2022. She's been talking about fighting Hannah Gabriels at 175. She's been talking about fighting former middleweight champion Christina Hammer, defending the super middleweight's belt there. Ladies and gentlemen, um, I dare say that if Franchon Cruz is looking for a fight, it's right in her own division, and it's in the form and shape of one Shadasia Green, who was on the undercard of this undisputed doubleheader, fighting Elin Cederroos. Cederroos is the woman that Cruz beat by decision to become undisputed champion in her last bout, and Shadasia, the sweet Terminator Green, awfully impressive performance. Uh, she dog walked, she mollywhopped, she beat up Cederroos, put her down in round 3, stopped her ultimately in round 6. Um, Cruz Dezern was in attendance. Uh, she didn't say much while there, but you have to figure that she was taking mental notes as she was sitting ringside watching that fight. In the aftermath on boxing Twitter, I heard the drum beat saying that Cruz, Dezern, and Shadasia Green should fight later on this year. I agree. The fight between Green and Cederroos was an eliminator. Look for Shadasia Green to be named mandatory contender by both the WBA and the WBC in the next month, 2 months, right? Look for the WBC to order a bout between Green and Cruz Dezern. If if Franchon Cruz Dezern wants to remain undisputed champion, she has to see Shadasia Green at this point. It's clear in my eyes, at least, that's the fight for her. That's the fight in the division. For those who didn't see that fight between Shadasia Green and Elin Cederroos, in breaking down Shadasia Green's style, she reminds me of recent Hall of Fame inductee Ann Wolf. Terrific puncher, demeanor. She takes no ish. Uh, she's focused. She's determined. She fights like Ann Wolf. She even kind of looks like Ann Wolf in terms of her body type, in terms of her style. I was very impressed watching it. Um, that's the fight for me. That is the fight. That is absolutely the fight for Franchon Cruz at 168 pounds. And let's hope we see it sooner rather than later. I would love to see it late spring, early summer. The ball is in your court, Franchon Cruz. You want an opponent? You have an opponent. It's right there for you. How soon will we see you in the ring against one, against what will be your mandatory challenger, Shadasia, the sweet Terminator Green? Let's move from there. Get to Larry Liston's point in terms of the fight between Navarrete and Wilson. That fight took place in Arizona. Going to put his comments back up there. He says that Navarrete Wilson fight was an all-out war. Sorry for going off script, but for me, that was the fight of the year. Definitely, I truly believe Valdez Navarrete is 50-50. Let's talk about that fight right quick as I'll leave his comments up here in the public YouTube screen. Navarrete moving up from 126 pounds. He's still technically a champion. He's a two-time champion, 126 and 130. Moved 122 and 126, excuse me. Moved up to 130 to fight Wilson, who was a substitute opponent for, ironically, Oscar Valdez. This fight was supposed to be between Navarrete and Valdez. Valdez had to bow out due to a freak injury, to injury due to a freak accident. He talked about it. He was in attendance for this fight. He talked about it with the folks over on ESPN, right? And just like people thought that Cruz would be easy, that Cruz would be easy work for Serrano, a lot of people felt that the Australian Wilson would be Liam Wilson, excuse me, would be easy work for Navarrete. Did not prove to be the case once again, as Wilson, who's known for having a big left hook, that punch hurt Navarrete. Follow-up punches put him down in the fourth. Controversial moment towards the end of that round, in which Navarrete seemed to purposely spit out his mouthpiece. Um, Fans on boxing Twitter raised all kinds of holy hell, saying that it was a long count. Uh, the fact that he spit out his mouthpiece gave him a considerable amount of time to recover. He really should have got docked the point, if not been up for disqualification, because you're not supposed to spit out your mouthpiece in the way he did. Fortunately for him, the referee didn't call him for it. He was able to recover, eventually gained his bearings, right, and found himself and began landing shots, beginning going to the body of Wilson, beginning to weaken Liam Wilson up the gut. The punches started to tell on Wilson in round 7, 8. Navarrete hurt him in round 9, ultimately finished him in the ninth. The question is, how do you judge Navarrete based on this performance? I watch him and I watch him fit and I look at his physical body. I didn't like the fact that he looked kind of pudgy at 130 pounds. He looked soft. I still think he should be down at 126 pounds. I think he needs to have a nutritionist ASAP. But Navarrete has a history of being stubborn when it comes to strength and conditioning, when it comes to nutrition. And it looks like for the time being, he's going to stay at 130 pounds and be that as it may. Valdez is going to be a fight for him soon. And if he fights Valdez the way he fights Liam Wilson, forget Valdez being a 50 fight with Navarrete. I think Valdez beat him, especially the Valdez that we saw dismantle and take apart and knock out Oscar Burchelt a few years ago. Uh, Valdez at his best, too much of a boxer, too sharp, too accurate for the likes of Navarrete, who leaves himself open a lot. Is Valdez a defensive wizard? Far from it. Far from the case. He can be hit as well. But when he's on his game and when he showed discipline like he did against Burchelt, uh, he is a tough out, right? At 130 pounds. And I think he has the boxing skill um, to handle the Navarrete that we saw last night. And I'll get you back. And I see Daniel's back with us. I'm talking about Navarrete and his fight against Wilson. Your breakdown of the fight. I know the people are talking about him fighting uh, um, Valdez, and that looks to be the next fight for him later on this spring, if not this summer. But should Navarrete still be fighting at 126 from a physical context and looking at his body? I think he should still be at featherweight. He shouldn't be competing at junior lightweight. Are you there, Daniel? I think Daniel is still dealing with some technical issues. Let's try now. Unmute your mic, Daniel. Are you there? Yeah, my apologies. We're still dealing with some technical issues. Hope to get his situation fixed on his end. But yeah, I'll go back to my point. I think that Navarrete is more of a featherweight than he is at 130-pounder. But since all roads are leading to the fight against Navarrete, that will more than likely be his next opponent. It'll be a good fight. It'll be an exciting fight. But if you were to ask me right now, I would make Navarrete the favorite in a match up against Navarrete later on this year. Uh, get to some news here. And I mentioned the fight with Taylor Serrano that's going to happen May 20th in Ireland. Not a specific, they was going to hope to have it in Croke Park in Ireland. It looks like finances it will prevent it from happening there. But the bottom line is that the fight is going to happen in May. Happy for that. Anthony Joshua, it was announced that his comeback is set. He's going to fight Jermaine Franklin April 1st in the UK. Let me see if Daniel can come back. If you're there, Daniel, please unmute your mic. If you're there, Daniel, please unmute your mic. Yeah, so just some bad technical issues with Daniel. But yeah, he's fighting Jermaine Franklin. Last time folks saw Franklin in the ring, he fought, gave a spirited battle against Dillian White November last year. A lot of people felt that Franklin actually beat White that evening. Joshua, we remember him for his two losses against Usyk. The first fight, September 2021, Usyk went to Joshua's home country in England, took the heavyweight unified titles from Joshua. They fought a rematch over in the Middle East in 2022. Um, right? Usyk beat him again, and Joshua, he had his moments certainly. In the ninth round, it looked like he had Usyk on the verge. Um, Usyk was frustrated. He looked like he was hurt, but as I've said here on the show, Usyk showed amazing second win. He just went into blitzkrieg mode in the championships round. Ultimately, got the win. Joshua, let's face it, everybody, Joshua came apart in the aftermath of the decision. Went on a rant um, that people are still scratching their heads in terms of what he was saying. I just think he was just so disheartened and so disappointed at the outcome of the fight that he kind of lost his way, and um, he apologized for that moment, for that episode. He returns to the ring again in April. New trainer this time. His last bout trained by Robert Garcia. For this bout, he's in Texas right now and will be trained by one Derek James. James, the trainer of Jermell Charlo, undisputed champion at 154 pounds. Also the trainer of unified 147-pound champion Errol Spence. It'll be interesting if the old dog now in Joshua, who's in his early 30s, can change his spots. What can James do to correct some of the negative aspects of Joshua's game? What can he do to up his conditioning? What can he do to make him more of a complete fighter? What can he do to make him more of to help to in terms of him using a better jab, become in terms of him becoming a better overall boxer? That is the question I have for Joshua in that fight. If he thinks he has any chance of beating Usyk, if he thinks he has a chance of beating one Tyson Fury, he has to show some significant improvement. Can it happen with James in his corner? We will see step one of that process in April when he fights Jermaine. When he fights Jermaine Franklin, and should be a decent test. Should be a decent test. Should be a decent test. Um, let's get to some fight previews. One fight I want to focus on, and then I want to end this up because again, Daniel's having some major technical issues on his end. Um, unfortunately, he's having some major technical issues. Looks like he's gonna not gonna be able to make the show. See some comments here. Amma says, in terms of Joshua's chances, in terms of possibly beating a Usyk or a Fury, he says his only chance is to pray. He also says that AJ doesn't have any dog in him. I've heard that criticism. That's been a criticism that's kind of quote unquote dogged Joshua throughout his career. The moment was right there when it came, in particularly in terms of that second fight with Usyk. He was on the cusp, Anna. He was on the cusp, Emma. Couldn't finish him off. Couldn't finish him off. And the same pit bull that we saw in that epic fight with Vladimir Klitschko in 2017, in which he gassed out, got hurt, got put down, but was able to pull himself together and ultimately finish Klitschko off. We haven't seen that AJ since. I don't know why. Uh, the grit and determination that he showed in that fight, I don't know why that hasn't shown itself since. Has he become complacent from a mental perspective? Has the success uh, and the money that he's made gotten to him? Has he settled? Um, what's the old saying? It's hard to get motivated when you go to bed or when you wake up in silk pajamas. Uh, don't it seems to be the case? It seems to be the case, and he has to have that fire. He has to have that fire. There has to be a deconstruction and a reconstruction in my head. He also, Emma says, is that not only does AJ doesn't have the dog in him, he also says he just couldn't get it done in that second fight with Usyk. He also says um, he doesn't recognize this fighter. I don't recognize this fighter. He talked about having more of a mean streak heading into that rematch with Usyk. He showed it in spots. But when Usyk turned on the gas again, he couldn't match him. Is it a condition? Again, that's the main question when it comes to Joshua. Until he kind of rediscovers who he is, until he really kind of find that fire, uh, and carry it not just in camp but carry it in fight. Yeah, we may have seen him peak, and he will not. He will not. As long as Fury is a champion, as long as Usyk is a champion, I find it hard pressed to see him uh, uh, um, winning a world title. I just do. I just don't see it. Not this AJ. Not at all. Not the AJ that we've seen recently. Not one bit. Let's move on to preview one fight I want to really talk about, and then we're going to end things here. Again, my apologies for the technical issues on this particular episode. Um, Vacant WBC junior lightweight title fight between Ray Vargas, who's current WBC champion at 126 pounds. Uh, he sent out a request and got permission from the WBC to fight for the vacant belt at 130 pounds. He's fighting Oshike Foster, who is mandatory contender at 130 pounds, according to the BC. Um, I wish I could give an argument as to why fans should be super pumped for this fight, but I have to be honest with you guys. It's hard to do it. It's hard to do it because Ray Vargas, if we're really going to be honest here, um, even though he is a two division champion, right? Been very successful during his career. He has a reputation for not being the most exciting of fighter. Uh, Tall, long. He loves to use his reach. Uh, he loves to keep things outside, and because of his style and demeanor, in a lot of cases, he's viewed as boring, as dull, as meh in terms of his fighting style by a lot of hardcore fans, by a lot of observers who've seen him in the ring. Uh, but despite that style, right, that's frustrating to watch, he's been effective. He's fighting Oshike Foster, who's a bit of an unknown, right? Southpaw guy from Texas, hasn't fought the best competition, but he did win an eliminator to earn this position, to earn this shot. Uh, and in terms of the fight, the reason I say this fight could be a dud is because of styles. Styles make fights. Oshike Foster is the younger fighter, but you just don't know how good he is. And if Ray Vargas can, if he dictates the pace, this could be, quite frankly, a boring fight. Uh, I don't know if Foster has the experience or has the true grit in him to force Ray Vargas into a firefight. If he if he can't force Vargas to get outside of his comfort zone, he's not winning. The only shot that he has is he if he's able to get to Vargas with power, with hurt him, make Vargas work, extend the older fighter, and make this more of a brawl as opposed to a boxing match. If it stays a boxing match, I'm going with Ray Vargas by decision. Even though I'm not fond of how he fights, um, he gets the job done. Um, I would like to see. I hope that Foster puts up a good performance, puts up a good effort, but experience means something, right? Vargas has been there. Foster has not. I go with the more experienced fighter here, Ray Vargas, to win the decision. Um, yeah, Foster by decision in my eyes. Uh, I see it no other way at this point again, unless Foster can find a way to put some hurt on this dude. That's his only chance to put some hurt on this dude. And I think we're going to end the show on that note. Okay, some more fights on that. Mario Barrios, he's fighting on the undercard. So look out for him. But the main fight is Ray Vargas, Oshike Foster, vacant WBC belt. That fight is going to happen in San Antonio, Texas, and it's going to be on Showtime. Again, my sincerest apologies for the technical issues on the behalf of Daniel. We hope to have it fixed before the next episode. I want to thank Larry. I want to thank Emma for being on. On the next episode, we will do a recap of Vargas Foster, and we will do a preview, excuse me, of one of the more polarizing fighters in the sport. Uh, the fighters that many hardcore fans love to hate. That is Luis Neri. He's fighting in a WBC 122-pound eliminator in Pomona, California, on the zone. Now, I'm not even going to try to pronounce the guy he's fighting. His name, Azat. I'll give him his first name, but I'm not going to. Avat Hovanesian. Um, WB 122-pound eliminator. That's going to be in Pomona, California. Also going to preview what should be a barn burner. Styles, if Styles have anything to do with it, this upcoming fight between Lee Wood and Mauricio Lara for the WBA featherweight title. Wood is defending that belt. Uh, that should be knock'em sock'em robots. Uh, Lee Wood coming off of the fight with Conlon, which was one of the more exciting, dramatic fights of 122 pounds. Wood behind on the scorecard was hurt badly by Conlon in that fight. Put down, he looked out on his feet. He looked out of it in rounds 2 and 3, but found a way to get back into the fight. Behind on the cards, stopped Conlon in the final round. He's finally returning to the ring against Mauricio Lara, who may be the hardest hitting, most exciting featherweight in the world. Wood can hit, but he can be hit. Mauricio Lara, he can bang for a featherweight, but If you've seen him in the ring, you also know that he acts like at times that he's allergic to defense. I can't. I'm really looking forward to it. Uh, yeah, should be a sensational contest that's going to happen in Nottingham, England, on the Zone as well. On the undercard of that, up and coming junior welterweight Dalton Smith. I've written an article about him for Three Kings Boxing. Please go to threekingsboxing.com, your source for pure unadulterated boxing information. Shout out to the Three Kings Boxing crew, the head of 3KB, Prodigy of Boxing Talk, aka 2K, Red, Bo, who you heard on this show numerous times, senior writer, head of media relations. Again, threekingsboxing.com, your source for pure unadulterated boxing information. So Dalton Smith, he's a rising 140 pounder, getting a lot of hype, a lot of promise, a lot of attention from the British boxing press. So keep an eye on him as well. He's fighting on the undercard. But Lee Wood, Mauricio Lara, uh, just believe when I tell you, if more than anything in the upcoming weekend, watch that fight. Watch that fight. Please, please watch that fight. You will not be disappointed. And I think we're going to end things on that note. Again, for Daniel, who again had technical issues, if you want to talk boxing, um, professional wrestling, the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat, you can check him out on Twitter, Raucous99. You can also check out his podcast, For Boxing News, also the Inscriber podcast. If you want to get in contact with Gail to talk the sweet science, you can do so. PR Pro San Diego. If you want to check out her work about the sweet science, you can do so on nyfights.com, and repeat that, nyfights.com. Hope to have both of them back next week. If you want to talk boxing, music, fitness with yours truly, you can do so on Twitter at BrotherJR76. If you want to talk boxing, music, fitness, and fragrance on IG and TikTok, you can do so at BrotherJRSC. Again, this has been episode 392 of Pound for Pound Box Report. Had to go solo tonight. Struggled a bit. Let me see if Daniel can get him back one more time. Can you hear us, Daniel?
Hey, apparently StreamYard wants to have beef with my cell phone provider because I get in the car and out of nowhere it takes off all of my cell signal until I get home.
Oh, oh. And just when I was getting ready to wrap things up, now that we have you back, um, let's do some recap. Your quick words here on the ladies, and their fights, the ladies card in NY. Let's start with Serrano Cruz. Your quick word on that.
Well, when it comes to that card, it did not disappoint. When it came to the how the event was done, the ladies came in and brought it. You knew all of them had a little bit to prove, and you saw it with first in the Baumgardner fight. I guess somebody just had to tell Alycia that Michaela Mayer was on stage or was on the audience, and then she turned it up a notch. And for Amanda Serrano, first, you got to give your hats off to Cruz. She fought her heart off, even though I think medically they should have probably taken her out because she was barely walking by the time that point. But Amanda did what she needed to do. She won the fight, and then obviously we got that announcement. And granted, the Zone's Twitter account kind of spoiled it beforehand, but we got the announcement, the rematch we wanted, Serrano versus Taylor in Ireland. We don't know where in Ireland, but it's going to be in Ireland because, unfortunately, like I said, Amanda won the fight, but Taylor won the decision.
I've
So,
heard Dublin, but I just don't know. But that's not confirmed.
yeah, that's the main thing. It's always got to. It has to be someplace in Ireland that's probably going to have a high population, and Dublin probably is the biggest spot that you can do.
And in terms of Baumgardner, right? I know she's talked fighting the winner of Taylor Serrano 2. But is the fight with Mayer the best option at this point, particularly from a money standpoint?
If we're just talking dollars and cents, yes. If we're talking just dollars and cents, then yes, the real fight that she can make at this point without moving up is Mekhaled. Obviously, she could probably move up and try to see if she can get on McCaskill, or if she can try even get, like I said, get the sweepstakes, or whoever wins the rematch between Amanda and Katie. But money wise, right now, Michaela's the fight you need to make for legacy, because this has become now the same type of version that we saw undisputed at the lightweight with the men when it came to Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez, and how that turned out. We have a similar situation in the women. For legacy, I would like to see either find a way to get Choi into the ring, or for the WBA to do what they needed to do, because it's pretty evident that Choi does not want to leave Korea, or at least not lose any type of advantage that she has, and just strip her the title. Oh, maybe Mike's having difficult issues this time. But I know you guys talked. I think you talked about Navarrete, right?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. My apologies. My apologies. Cruz Dessert was in attendance for Shadasia Green's dominant win over Cederroos, as the Sweet Terminator went through Cederroos like a hot knife through butter. As far as I'm concerned, Daniel, the champ saw her. She was in the building. For someone who likes to talk a lot about other fighters, she didn't mention that. She didn't talk that much about Shadasia Green. She knows what's up. As far as I'm concerned, Franchon Cruz, as much as we like her from a personality perspective, she has to see Shadasia Green. That fight has to happen. It has to happen this year. As far as I'm concerned, it has to happen right now, ASAP, next.
Yeah, that I agree with wholeheartedly, because who did Green put on an ass whooping that
She's
night?
Ann Wolf 2.0.
In both ferocity and attitude.
And even how she looks, her physical features. She's Ann Wolf. She has a demeanor that also reminds me of former middleweight champion Gerald McClellan.
Yeah, actually, I think she has McClellan's hook, which is pretty interesting. But that's gonna be something with Stretch Cruz she's not gonna be able to avoid at a certain point, because I understand the French Sean is looking at Clarissa because it's her only loss, and it's a debatable loss at that. But just because you're looking at what you think's ahead of you, don't ignore what's creeping up behind you. And Miss Green is creeping right behind Franchon. And you might want to watch out there, because if you don't pay attention, that young lady is going to steamroll you.
If she can't, if how can I put it? How can I put it? If Cruz Discern cannot find a, if she can't find a way to push Green back, if she can't find a way to hurt her, and if Green can keep her composure in the big stage, we may well see a new champion.
I agree. Like I said, don't don't just focus on what's ahead of you. If it's going to be Clarissa, if you're, like I said, if you're Franchon Cruz, because What's behind you will steamroll you if you don't pay attention.
Um, you mentioned Navarrete and Wilson,
Wilson,
right?
right?
And a lot of people are complaining that Navarrete benefited from a long count, given the situation towards the end of round four where he got put down, seemed to purposely spit out his mouthpiece, was able to gather himself, recover, stopped him in the ninth round. Looks like he's going to fight Alistair Valdez in the future. Talk about that fight quickly, but did Navarrete benefit from a little bit of favoritism here, not being reprimanded for spitting out his mouthpiece? Because yeah, at the very least he should have had a point taken away from him. But more to the point, what he did is grounds for disqualification.
There is a school of thought. I know on Sunday, Bo brought it up in the Twitter space that the way Navarrete spit the mouthpiece, it should be a signal to the judge that you're done. You don't want to fight anymore. But like we've seen in situations, like for example, the first two knockdowns that Anthony Joshua suffered against Andy Ruiz, you are technically given, if you're champion, you are given a little bit of advantage by referees. They want to give you a chance to see if you recover well. And Navarrete, to his credit, he did. You can debate whether or not a point should have been deducted. It's completely fair to think that a point should have been deducted, which would have made it a 10-7 round. But if everything continued the same, and with that point deduction, it wouldn't have mattered because at the end of the day, Navarrete focused on the body, started landing more in Cruz, and it became a battle of attrition. But Navarrete's at a point where 130 may not be for him. And if Oscar Valdez catches you the way he caught Berchelt, he'll make it a point to tell you, yeah, 130 ain't for you.
Anthony Joshua announced announced his comeback April 1 against Jermaine Fulton, right? More than the opponent himself, your reaction to yet another trainer for AJ, Derek James, uh, Three Kings Boxing. We named him as the 2022 Trainer of the Year. James, lead trainer for Jamel Charlo, undisputed champion at 154. Lead trainer for Errol Spence, unified champion at 147, right? Do you think he could do anything in terms of resurrecting uh, the former undisputed, two-time undisputed heavyweight champ?
Well, first, I think you mean unified champion because he never claimed the WBC belt.
Unified champion, excuse me,
Yeah,
unified champion.
yeah. But no, because my personal belief has always been when it comes to fighters and trainers, if you switch a trainer, it takes 3 fights to fully acclimate to that trainer's regimen and to incorporate his style to what you're going to do. And he's jumping from somebody that's more offensively minded in Robert Garcia to somebody that's a little bit more even in Derek James. But at the same time, this is only one fight. Granted, it's a good opponent to pick from. You picked a domestic opponent. It shouldn't be trouble for you. But what we're dealing with in Anthony Joshua right now is a fighter that has been rattled. It's a fighter that has lost decisively in many ways against two other fighters in Ruiz and Usyk that he should have been towering over. Now, yeah, with Ruiz, he avenged the loss. And with Usyk, he lost twice. He did better the second time, but then he had that meltdown afterwards. It's a good build up to it. Is it going to be taken seriously in the long run? We have to see how this performance goes because we saw what his opponent did to Dillian White. Now, granted, that was a Dillian White that has already, unfortunately, there's been a lot of tread in the tires. So for Joshua, it's going to be a situation of can he actually incorporate three fights worth of learning into one? I don't think he can, but because of the opponent, I don't think it's going to matter unless the performance is really bad.
Last word here. Look, Ray Vargas fighting on Shike Foster, vacant WBC belt. I expressed my thoughts on that. Yes, it's a title fight, a world title fight, but I have to be honest and say, I'm not going to sit here and claim that I'm going to be really, really excited about this fight. Their styles, not necessarily a good mesh. We all know Vargas has a reputation for being pretty anodyne in the ring. Um, don't know about Foster in terms of what he really, really has, even though he's mandatory challenger. I say all that to say this fight has the potential to be a bit of a dud, very meh, despite what's at stake, Daniel.
As you can't say that Ray Vargas didn't exactly earn that reputation. It's one of the reasons it's one of I think his relationship with Nacho became strained as it was. And ultimately, it's a situation now where you have to see first. Let's take it to the fact that Wilson, for we saw Navarrete, should be an example of sometimes being high ranked, sometimes being in this fight for the Bacon champ for a Bacon fight. You may find a little bit of diamonds in the rough. I don't see him though in this case because as anticlimactic as Ray Vargas tends to be at times, he does know what he's doing. He does have good technique. And unless you really push him like what happened with Maxayo, he will use his reach. He will use his range to beat you from a distance. Is it aesthetically pleasing? No, but it does get the job done.
Yeah, and indeed, I think we're going to in word on that note. I will say it again on the next episode. Um, we would do a recap of the fight between uh, Vargas and Foster. We will also talk about the polarizing Luis Neri, who's fighting a preview of Luis Neri, who's fighting in a WBC 122-pound eliminator. We will also talk about what shapes to be just a terrific battle between Lee Wood, who's defending his WBA featherweight belt, against Mauricio Lara. That has the potential to be an outstanding one and another candidate for Fighter of the Year, just like Serrano Cruz, just like Navarrete Wilson was this past weekend. On the undercard of that rising 140-pound contender, Dalton Smith, he's fighting a guy by the name of Allegan on that undercard of Wood and Lawrence. So I mentioned that. And before we head off, once again, Daniel, for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk professional wrestling, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat, let the folks know where they can find you.
Yes, folks, you can find me on Twitter. Luckily, Elon has not nuked it yet. So, Twitter, Rawkus99, RAWKUZ99. Definitely catch me, fam. And I, 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 I'm looking at Amos. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see how he shapes up in this case because we have to realize there's also a lot of money tied up in Anthony Joshua as far as marketing. And if he flops, then yeah, then I would tend to agree with Mr. Alma here to be shown in the comments.
Indeed, indeed. And I'll just repeat again for those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness with me on Twitter, you know what it is, Brother JR76. If you want to talk boxing, music, fitness, and fragrance with me on Instagram and TikTok, you can do so. Brother JRSC, excuse me. This has been episode 392, Pound Pound Box Reports. Again, I want to apologize for the technical issues from our end. Hope to get that alleviated and fixed behind the scenes in time for next week's episode. Um, Once again, Gail couldn't make it because she's feeling under the weather. I hope she gets better soon, fully recovers and gets better soon. So for Daniel of For Boxing News and the Inscriber, I'm your host, Michael. Episode 392 of Pound for Pound Box Report. We will see you guys next time. Y'all have a good one, good evening, good night.